Hi, my name is John Brown. I'm a prevention specialist at the Counseling Center here in Portsmouth, Ohio. A little bit about myself. I used to be a public school teacher and a basketball coach for the state of West Virginia. I moved into the private sector of education and training, worked for a government program called Job Corps. I moved up into management for them, moved to Washington, D.C. Found that I did not get the same pleasure out of my job anymore. I didn't work with the kids as much, and I really missed it. I like helping people a lot. I reached out to some friends that work here at the counseling center, and said, "Hey, you got anything I can do to help people?" And so now I'm here. So the counseling center traditionally does not offer too many services that would fall under the prevention side of this continuum of care spectrum. We typically deal with intervention and recovery services. So I haven't been here very long, but I have heard on several occasions people ask, what does the counseling center do for the kids? Well, that is exactly what we are trying to figure out. And, it is one of my passions, aside from just helping people in general, but I love kids. Their futures are, full of potential. And, one of my goals is to see, each individual kid, student, youth, whatever you want to call it, reach their fullest potential. So if you look here to the left, you will see my email, you will see my phone number, and to the far left over there, that is the main phone number for the counseling center. So if you end up watching this video, you got any more questions, please feel free to get in touch with me or call the counseling center in general. Um, but the purpose of this presentation today is to talk about some of the things that we need to start doing. So my long-term dream of some of the services and stuff that we would provide that would be for the kids. That's a ways off, but that's the direction we're going to go. And one of the logical first steps is, to offer some type of prevention curriculum, that can be taught in the schools, whether it be by us. I have noticed there are a couple schools, and there is a neighboring county where a company that specializes in prevention, has came in to train teachers, to teach curriculum for prevention. But being a teacher myself in the past, that wouldn't be something if it was me that I would want to do. I already got enough to do teaching, and you want me to teach more stuff on top of what I'm already teaching. Then if I'm a kid, I see this same teacher all the time. I may not be able to relate to them that much, and they're trying to tell me about things that I don't want to hear about. So maybe someone like myself that may have some experience in the prevention side of things, that may look like the type of people that I look up to. If you haven't noticed already, I'm covered in tattoos. A lot of the athletes and rock stars that these kids idolize today, they look like me. So one of the experiences I've had as a teacher is like the parents and the kids love me. The principals are like, oh my God, what are people going to think? But like I said, the most important thing of that is that the kids, they relate to me. And I've always been their favorite teacher, per se. And, one of the reasons I left public schools because, they don't like you to do anything but teach, curriculum. And I have a big heart. I care about kids, so they would bring their problems to me. And, basically it's like, John, you can't talk to kids about those things. You're not their parents. And then where I taught at and the kids that I've dealt with over the years, a lot of them didn't have a father figure, and that's the role that I played. And so since public school wasn't a big fan of that, I moved to where I could, and I feel that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So enough about me, enough about, my perspective on things and my opinion, and more about what I call the Scioto County Schools Prevention Curriculum Proposal. So what we're offering is two curriculums. I will give a little overview of each of those. I will be doing separate videos for those after this that will go into more detail about it, because I know that if you're a principal, if you're a parent, if you belong to the school board, you're going to have specific questions about these curriculums, and I'm going to try to address that. So, like I said, there are long-term goals, but when it comes to this first adventure that we're going to take on, there are goals that I have for the long term, and that is, first of all, I would like to have relationships between the counseling center, myself, the prevention department as it grows, and all of the schools, at least in Scioto County. At that point, I would like the schools, I want them to have a choice. I want them to be able to look at both curriculums and see which one is better suited for them. But I would like to see one of the two at the least, if not both. They can both be done, you know, implemented in the elementary, middle, and high schools in Scioto County. The goals of these curriculums is to provide the type of education and training that students would need to build their confidence, strengthen their decision making abilities, and promote their overall success, which is, my main thing. And then for myself personally, for the counseling center, we would like to see this grow enough to where we can hire, train, and assign more staff to the school so that we can continually provide this curriculum ongoing over the years. And the big picture is that this will be one small piece of the puzzle, but what we should see at some point in the future is an environmental impact. And by that I mean, the health department has statistics on file. We should be able to pull statistics from now for such things as like drug abuse, overdose, violence, tobacco use, etc. And then we should be able to, a few years down the road, pull these same numbers and see a decline as a result of our efforts. But I was always told it takes a village to raise a child. So, we want to do our part here at the counseling center. I want the schools to buy in on this. I want the parents to be involved. I want to see the whole community, because, Scioto County, Ohio, Southern Ohio, whatever you want to call it, it's no different than where I'm from in West Virginia. And we are at what they would call an epidemic level when it comes to drug use, violence, and overdoses. And something's got to change. So this is like, this is where we're headed here. So hopefully you people will get on board. So if you got a little question about, what is this curriculum, where does it come from? So there are some child development theories. If you're not an educator, if you didn't have to take classes in college, we've got our social learning theory, social development model, and I think on the next slide there's developmental assets framework. And I just touch on a couple of the main points from each of those theories. There's a whole lot more theories than that. These are just the three that I decided to pick. And so, looking at social learning theory, to give you a really good example is like, I'm a child, and this is my experience as well. I grew up in a household where my family, my parents and my older sibling, they're all using drugs or alcohol, right? This seems to be a normative behavior in my neighborhood. There's a lot of violence. A lot of the other kids, older kids, parents in my neighborhood are using drugs. So this seems to be a socially acceptable behavior. And so what happens is I become to a point, I decide to experiment with it. If anybody's ever experimented, unless you did a little too much, that first experience doesn't really have any negative consequences. I probably didn't get arrested. I probably didn't, something bad probably didn't happen. And so then that kind of reinforces to me as a child, or a teenager, young adult, whatever, that hey, this is okay, this is cool, and I'm going to continue to do this. And as we have all been seeing that, what starts out as a good time for some progresses, especially with the drugs out there today, to a point where they can't stop. They're strung out, and we see these young people, these lives ended abruptly from overdose. These families are affected. The communities are affected. It's at epidemic levels. One of the other theories, the social development, talks about risk and protective factors. And so, such things as I was just talking about is like parents using violence in the neighborhood, drugs is rampant, poverty, this, that, and the other. These are risk factors that will play into the child's development and whether they will choose to use or participate in those behaviors as they get older. And so, these curriculums have been designed to try to increase the protective factors, and see those protective factors will then offset the risk factors, and hopefully these children that we are increasing their protective factors will in the long run make these better decisions, the ones we want them to. And we're going to promote pro-social behavior, whether that's with the family, whether that's in the school setting, amongst their peers, and in the community. Like I said, it takes a village to raise a child. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set these clear standards of what is acceptable behavior, what is normal, right? And set these norms, these values, and give examples and model these behaviors, right? The last one, it talks about the assets. And, if you own a business or if you've ever, had any business classes, there's assets and there's liabilities, right? So basically, there's the theory that there's these 40 essential assets that are looked at like building blocks, that if you can give kids these 40, they will grow up to be healthy and competent, caring, emotionally sensitive, human beings, which will promote their overall success in the future. I'm sorry. These can be intrinsic and extrinsic. That means there's some internal assets, there's some external ones, but at the end of the day, the more assets they have, the better off they're going to be, the more resilient they'll be, and the better decisions they'll make. So also, what does prevention do? In terms of these education curriculums. So look, we're going to do such things. There's a few that I have listed here. We're going to address social influences, and that's the peers, that's the advertising. Social media today is a huge influencer on the kids, and what we're going to do is try to correct their misperceptions, right? So like you know. For an example, a lot of the rap music today, talks about using certain types of drugs and even glorifies the use of it. And so, these kids are very influenced by this. So they, and again, they want to grow up to be like these people. And so this is perceived as what's cool, what's acceptable, what's normal, when it's not. So we need to, make sure we address that. We explain these things in detail, and then we basically, give them examples and reinforce these examples of what is considered the real norm. What is a more pro-social behavior? What is a more positive thing to participate in? We're going to help them develop their social and personal skills. We're going to promote their proactive, positive, healthy youth development through building an internal and external set of assets. And then we're going to address those risk and protective factors that we talked about, whether it be in a home setting, because, if we help them to identify what the risk factors are at home, what they are at school, what are the personal risk factors, we will then talk about, well, this is one of the assets or protective factors that can, be used to offset that. We're going to give them a safe environment in their classroom to practice these things. So here's the two programs. So we have chosen at the counseling center, we have invested time and money into getting the training required to provide this stuff and to get the curriculum in hand. So it is relatively at no cost to anybody but ourselves. The schools don't really have to do anything. I have seen a couple times here so far where a school has had to write for a grant to then pay another company that is offering something similar to us to come in and train their teachers, and then the school uses the grant money to pay them and then pay for this curriculum, which they then have to teach themselves. Like I said, if I was a teacher and a principal, sounds good, and like I said, or like I should say, I do still keep my ear to the wall when it comes to education. I'm still in contact with a lot of people in that field, and social emotional learning is a new term, and I think the school systems are moving over to incorporating that, and it may even be mandated. So, for principals out there, you're watching this right now, you know that, hey, you've got to find some social emotional learning. And I came in and said, hey, we will get you a grant and train your people to use it. You're going to think it's a great idea, but like I said, I take myself out of the principal role because I got to find this stuff. I'm now the teacher again, and I'm like, oh, you want me to teach more stuff on top of what I'm teaching? And the kids are like, can we just get somebody different in here teaching us something different? You know what I mean? So you know, we found these. It's social emotional learning. These are both nationally recognized and approved. This is evidence based, science backed. The implementation of these programs, it can be, continual, but it does, take between 12 and 17 weeks, depending on which one and how we implement it to run through, the whole course. It really only takes between 30 and 55 minutes each time we do it, depending on how the school wants us to do it or what works best. It may be one day a week. It could be 5 days a week. Again, that's depending on which program. These things I will go into more detail about. But one of the things that needs to at least be consistent is the group of kids that we started with needs to be the same group of kids we have all the way through until completion. As a principal or as a school board member or a teacher or anybody involved in the academic field, you know about alignment. We know about common core standards, this, that, and the other. Between the two of these, like I said, I just kind of compiled, what they have in common and what they cover. Again, in detail, I'll be more specific on which one's which, but we cover the American School Counselors Association competencies and indicators. We align with the American Cancer Society's content standards and benchmarks. It will hit Ohio and national health standards. If you evaluate your school on performance indicators, it will hit groups 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. It is PBIS, that's Positive Behavior Supports and Intervention Framework. It's RTI, Response to Intervention. Oh, and look, CASEL, or CASEL, Social Emotional Learning Alignment. And there are common core standards. And, if it's a teacher that has to give a lesson plan, or principal that the board asked for them. It does show in each of these what standards they align with, so it takes out some of the guesswork and the headache of trying to figure out how what I'm teaching aligns with it. It's kind of incorporated into the program, so it's pretty much one of those. You can just cut and paste. We can run this thing, and we have the paperwork to back it. So some of the areas that these focus on is goal setting, decision making, conflict resolution, effective communication skills, problem solving skills, social emotional competency, drug and violence resistance skills. So again, this is not a DARE program. This is not the fire department, having a car on fire and cutting it open with the jaws of life, to scare kids away from, drinking and driving. This is not scare tactics. We're not bringing recovering addicts in to give their story. None of that stuff. We just want to teach kids things that will develop skills that will offset the decision of using drugs. So a little bit more about Bodvin. Again, this is not as in detail as the other videos will be that are geared specifically towards each one of these, but Bodvin in general is only designed for basically grades 3 through 10. Now, there are some supplemental like extensions to their curriculum that can be picked up, that can be used a little bit before the third grade and after the 10th grade. Um, you can see the program link down here, 24 class sessions for elementary, 30 for middle, and then 10 for the high school. It does offer an e-learning system. And like I said, it does offer subsequent trainings or supplemental trainings. Substance abuse, more specific, bullying, more specific, health and nutrition. So again, not only do we want to develop these skills, but if we want to go a little more in depth in each one of these subjects here, there are some curriculums that can be purchased and used that are a little more geared towards that. And there's also a program for transitional and parenting, and these are like young adults. And if any of the parents in the community would like to get a group together, or if at some point we would like to offer some type of, something for the community, for parents in the community, then we have some curriculum to use for that. The Too Good for Drugs. This one is from kindergarten, 12th grade. It's 10 to 15 sessions, no matter which level we're at. It has remote learning management system, but it's currently, or at least the last time I checked, it was only for high school because they're working on creating that. And that's just because of distance learning, and and some of the schools nationwide, they're still working from home remotely. So they're developing or turning their curriculum over to that. Um, there's another training program that goes with theirs. It's for violence prevention. Each of the units have expansion units, and there's even after school activities that can be purchased. And I do believe we have the after school one. What we can expect, or like talking to you all, what we can expect, or what I think we're all hoping for here, is that, like I said, in the future, when we pull the numbers from the health department or the hospital or even the police station, we will see a reduction in these items over here. So tobacco use, we should see that go down. Alcohol use, marijuana, methamphetamines, a lowered risk of prescription and opioid misuse, which we know that's the center of the epidemic. And unfortunately, Portsmouth is the epicenter here in Ohio of that, just like Huntington back in West Virginia is the epicenter there. The use of inhalants, narcotics, and hallucinogens should be reduced, and we should see a reduction in violence, risky driving, and even HIV-related behavior or sexual promiscuousness. Again, that's my contact information, and then my senior director, friend, and the other person that's we're geared towards. What can we do for the kids again? That's both of our contact informations, phone numbers, and emails. Please, if you have received this video, we are reaching out to you. Maybe someone has watched this and has turned you on to it. Please reach out to us. Like I said, it's going to take several years, to see through what we actually want to do as a bigger picture. A lot of red tape, a lot of finding funding sources, this, that, and the other. The legal side of everything. But we're working towards doing something for the kids. And between me and Max, we're the two people you want to reach out to, talk to, if you want to help, if you got any ideas, if you're you want us to come to your school, whatever. Feel free to get a hold of us again. It's been my pleasure to discuss some of this. I hope you like the video, and I really look forward to hearing from you. Have yourself a good day.